He will equal his wife.
Yeah. No, his wife.
Yeah.
He's not a
He's not. Yeah.
Okay. So we're in chapter 22 of Shorish Mitzvot Tefillah, Derech Mitzvosecha. And we were talking about wisdom again. And the reason he's bringing up wisdom again is because he wants us to understand how wisdom works. That we haven't discussed yet. We've said a few things about it, but now he's going to give us the main parable about how wisdom actually creates distinction, but it itself, as we'll see, is not distinct. Like we said yesterday, that wisdom is still in a state of nullification. Because it's in a state of nullification before Hashem, before the light of the infinite revelation of Hashem, it itself is in a state of unification. It's not divided. There's no division in it. So how does it still create distinction? So the parable that he's going to give us now is very crucial to believing that there's such a thing. Because in the beginning, when I say this, you say, how can something divide things but not have any division within itself? And actually, as we'll see, it's the opposite, that the less division you have in yourself, the more you can divide other things, the more you can distinguish between other things. So let's see this. וגם ההמשכה נמשכת, so we're at the end of 252, at the bottom, last line. וגם ההמשכה נמשכת מחוכמה עילה לבקע את המידות, ולהיות מזה התחלקות האותיות, ובחינת עוד וו, כל פשוט. So he says, the power of supernal wisdom to, I think we use the word to permeate or to break apart, levakea, it's like actually like fission. The modern Hebrew word for fission is bikua. Really? Yeah, so it's to split something apart. From this comes all the separation of the letters, because we said all the letters just start out as air. There's nothing separating them. There's nothing yet forming them into separate letters. So that's called the letter Vav, which is a kol pashut, which is a simple or unified sound. Kol pashut. Now the word kol in Hebrew means two things. It means either sound or voice. So the sound of the shofar is called a simple sound. And what's it meant to do? It's meant to shatter the heart. It's meant to break apart the heart. Like what it says in Tanya in chapter 30, that if there is 29, if there is a piece of wood that you can't burn because it's too big, it's a log, it's too big, so what do? You chop it up and you make it into little pieces. And the moment that you make it into little pieces, then the fire can catch hold on it. So the same thing is true about the heart. You have to, as it were, shatter the heart in order to begin to feel something. So basically, people who find it difficult to express emotion, to articulate what they feel, and even to feel it, even at the beginning just to feel it, not even to say it yet. Most people walk around after the age of, I think, 30 with what they consider to be a very calcified heart. It's like made out of stone. That's what it means, that we have a stone heart. A heart of stone is like when a person cannot feel things. It's not that he doesn't understand emotions. Maybe he understands them. He can even identify them in other people. But he himself doesn't feel like he has emotions. And the reason he doesn't have emotions is because he's calcified. Over time, he can't break his heart apart, as it were. So there's nothing. The fire can't catch hold. There's no life in it. So what's the remedy? The remedy is wisdom, supernal wisdom, bittul, what we call bittul. So in Rosh Hashanah, we want to feel that Hashem is the response to all our cravings, all our yearnings, everything that we want. And we also want Hashem to feel. We say something very interesting on Rosh Hashanah. We say, you too, Hashem, need us to feel. You need this. Why? Because you're saying to us, blow the shofar before me so that you will anoint me as your king. What does it mean that a person should anoint Hashem as his king? If a person has no feelings, they don't need a king. This is a very interesting thing. You don't need a navigator for the heart if you don't feel anything. And Hashem, above all, is a navigator for the heart, more than anything else. Is a navigator for circumcising. He circumcises the heart and he navigates it, and he brings the person to the right place in their lives. So to do this, we blow a simple sound, a very simple sound, and the purpose of this sound is to permeate the calcified heart, to break it into pieces, to shatter it, as it were, and then you begin to feel something. V'hu ma shekatuv, and this is what it means when it says, "V'natatem li ot emet." You should give me a sign of truth. But the word sign in Hebrew, ot, also means letter. So there's a letter of truth. There's sign of truth and letter of truth. Davav, says the Zohar. This verse, you should give me a sign of truth. That Rachav says to the two spies, give me a true sign that you will save me and my family from the destruction of Jericho, and so on. All this, says the Zohar, that is the letter Vav. Uchtiv titen emet leYaakov. And it says that Hashem gives truth, a true sign means truth. It doesn't really mean true in the sense of true and false, although it can be seen this way. We'll see in a moment how to understand this. So it says Hashem gives truth to Jacob. What do you mean you give him to Jacob? So he says Jacob is a very interesting thing. He's the bariach hatichon hamavriach min hakatzeh lakatzeh. So we have to put all these things together. We'll put it together in a second. He's the middle. Forgot the word. Beam, the middle beam. What? Okay, bolt, beam that goes through the walls of the tabernacle. There were 5 beams on each wall, 2 on top, 2 on bottom, and one that went all the way through. Now, there's 2 ways of reading the verses there. One way is to say in each wall separately there were 5 beams. The other way of understanding it is that the middle beam, bariach hatichon, which corresponds to Jacob, the upper beam corresponds to Abraham, the lower beam to Yitzchak, and the middle beam is Jacob. So the middle beam is one all the way around. How can a bolt go through 3 perpendicular walls? So he has a special tendency to be able to bend, but we're ignoring that for now. What we're saying is that he holds everything together, but he's like this ability to be a straight thing that can bend. That's like the idea here. What's a straight thing that can bend? What are we talking about? What is all this? What is all this imagery? The idea is that it's not broken into pieces. It's not like the higher bolts and the lower bolts, which had to be broken into pieces between the 3 walls. Here, the middle beam is one beam all the way through, meaning it doesn't shatter, it doesn't break itself. What is this? So first of all, the simple parable. The simplest parable is that when you want to fashion something, you need to have a izmel. There's another word. You know how to say izmel in Hebrew? Izmel. How do you say that in English? It's this thing that you chip. It's like somebody who's it's like a hammer. It's like a hammer, but you use it to. So I don't mean an izmel then. So you could say you could use a knife also, but what I was thinking of is what somebody who uses who carves in stone. They use a chisel. Thank you. So a chisel. Think about it. The chisel itself has to be non-breakable, but by being non-breakable, it can break everything into pieces. That's the idea of wisdom. That it doesn't break itself. But by being impermeable, by being unbreakable, that's how it separates things. That's how it causes the distinction. Now, one of the ideas here that you could say is that truth has that ability also. The truth can separate between things. In the spiritual realm, in the intellectual realm, you can say truth is like a chisel to differentiate between things. There are things. Wisdom and truth. Not usually. Now, in Kabbalah they are, because from the 13, what we call tikkunei dikna, the rectifications of the beard of Arich. So the middle one, these corresponds to the 13 principles of mercy in the Torah. The middle one is emet, emes. Emes is truth. And that one is said to be the source of wisdom. So it even says that wisdom comes out of truth in that sense. But it's not so, that's like you have to think a lot about what that means. What does it mean that chokhmah comes from emes? What exactly does it mean? Mazal emet. There it's called a mazel. It's something a little bit different. But it's the same. It's the same imagery. So we have here that for something to be able to shatter my heart in such a way that I can open up my feelings, it itself has to be unbreakable. It itself has to be hard. And that's true. And that's truth. That's wisdom. The wisdom uses truth. It could use other things as well. It doesn't have to necessarily use truth. There are other distinctive qualities that you could use to break things up. Here, truth is not the right word when you're talking about the heart. It's kind of weird. Like, why would you say it? It's not that the heart has true and false. It's like if you go to a psychologist, the question is not so much whether you're true or false. It's not like that. When you go into the heart, the question is whether it's authentic. People will use that word. Whether it's resilient. Is the heart resilient? Are your feelings that can stand up to the test of life? Do they stand up to the test of your reality, of your relationships? That's the real question about the heart. So when I talk about connecting to Hashem, I'm asking, am I true to myself? I'm not talking about truth in the logical sense, true or false. True to myself is something completely different. It's like, again, the word that people use today is authentic. Whether you really can live up to those standards. Are you really like that? Real is much closer to it than truth. So the idea here is that Hashem wants the person to be true to themselves. And so what permeates the calcified heart is this chisel made out of this simple sound. Like it shatters everything. It breaks it up into pieces. When people hear the blow of the shofar, it's like they're opened up suddenly. Not always. Doesn't always happen. But hopefully it does. And the point is that you blow the shofar from the thin, very narrow end to the very wide end. And that again is the same idea. You take something that was thin, like a chisel, and it allows everything to break apart, to open up, to become widespread, to become dispersed. And you need that in order to begin to look at yourself, and in order to begin to feel. אלא שאם כל זה, אף שהוא בעצמו אין בו התחלקות מכל מקום הוא בחינת כוח המחלק, שיהיה התחלקות האותיות במלכות. And so like we said, it is the one that opens up the heart, and opening up the heart in Chassidus means that the person is able to speak. They're able to utter words, that the letters begin to come out. And you think about somebody who's closed, who's in shock, who's in post-trauma, or whatever it is, they have no words. And so to bring back the words, you have to chisel. You have to break it apart in some kind of way. You have to make it alive again. The difference between something that's alive and something that's dead is exactly this ability to separate into small pieces. The person, when they're alive, they're made out of 1 trillion cells. When you die, the cells begin to calcify. They die. If our bones weren't the size they were, we could make more movement. So here I can't. There's only so much I can move. But with my fingers, because I have smaller and smaller bones, I can make more and more delicate movements. The same thing is true in the heart. If the heart is calcified, so the person can't feel, can't understand anything emotional. Maybe understand but can't feel it. The more it's broken up into small pieces, the more they can begin to feel something. And when the feelings begin, and again, here we're not talking about just feelings towards other people, we're talking about feelings towards God. And when I say feelings towards God, it's not just have I been good this year or not good? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about whether I've been true to myself, whether worked for what I believe godliness is? And is this what my life is dedicated to? Or is my life dedicated to the passing pleasures of life, which we have many of today? And what am I working on? Am I working on the eternal, which is the best definition of what God is? That He is the eternal. He's the Netzach Yisrael. He's the eternal of Israel. He's everything that is eternal in life. So am I working for that? Am I working for things that are passing and fleeting? Even when I'm working for things that are passing and fleeting, how am I working for them? Like when I take a kid to the doctor. So do I take them out of a feeling of, wow, you've just wasted 2 hours of my life? Or do I take them with a feeling that this is the eternal work that I need to do? And I need to add eternity into everything. Okay, so with this we'll end today, and God willing, continue tomorrow.